Good afternoon. This is Chris, and Kirsten is in the Lula room putting together some amazing things for the show tonight. Super excited to be here with Savvy Pants Shop, LuLaRoe Independent Distributors. We have a chance to share with you today a very, very interesting person that I ran across about 10 years ago. And I would ask you a question. Do you remember somebody from 10 years ago? You don't really know them, but you remember something about them? Well, if you do, that's probably a very captivating individual and somebody that you want to look back up in the future, and that's exactly what we did. I said, hey, what would be really interesting to share with our ladies at Savvy Pants Shop that may be motivational, inspirational, educational, and entertaining? Like, I don't hear that every day. So we looked up Polly, and it was about 10 years ago that I met Polly doing some speaking, training, and events and things in Denver, Colorado. And as you can see, the title of this video is 12 years old, breast cancer, 2,000-mile pub crawl, I believe in Australia. What do all those things have in common? They have in common Polly, who is on the interview with us today. And I would like to introduce Polly. Polly, say hello to the crew.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And you're from Denver, Colorado?
I am originally from Minnesota, but I am sitting right here in snowy Denver, Colorado right now.
That is correct. Well, I tell you, this will take a little bit of a meandering turn, but when I first heard about you, was that the only thing that I could think of is 3 miles per hour. And 3 miles per hour is the speed at which you walked across the globe.
That's right. 3 miles per hour is the average walking speed. I'm actually kind of a slow walker, so it's more like 2.5, but that's not quite as kitschy as a title. So well, 3 miles an hour.
Counting, right? Right. That's fantastic. Now, how many cumulative miles?
14,124, but who's counting?
You were counting, exactly. So
actually, that does not include all the miles that I was lost and had to get back on track.
You didn't count lost miles, huh?
Yeah, I kind of, had a separate column for that. But
I never even thought of that. What do you think it is for lost miles? How many miles?
There's probably an additional 1,000 miles anyway.
I want to give you credit for it. I want to say like the 15,000 miles that you walk, because that's fantastic.
Like, whoops, wrong path.
Wrong direction.
And then you got to back up and start over again. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
You can't get a ride back. Whoops, I took a wrong turn. Could someone give me a ride back?
I'm in the wrong country. How did that happen? Yeah. Right. What I find I'm going to link down below to some other videos, some documentary videos, and I'm going to put a link down below as well for your book. What's the title of your book?
3 miles per hour, 3 mph, The Adventures of One Woman's Walk Around the World.
And we can find that on
Amazon, everywhere books are sold.
Excellent. So I'm going to put a link down below. So we're probably not going to do a chronicle mile for mile how it turned out, but there are a couple of big,
it could be a while.
I want people to go buy the book because it's fascinating. Where it's taking you today, I think, is just as interesting. So can you kind of give us an idea? I always love the motivational, inspirational stuff. Tell us how the first, like where the idea came from.
I was 12 years old growing up in Minneapolis. I had one of those childhoods where, back in the 70s when the parents are like, get out of the house, go play, and I don't want to see you until, dinner time. So we spent our days, me and the neighborhood kids, just full of imagination and making up games and this kind of thing. And
back in the day.
Yeah, and there was a story in the newspaper, the good old Minneapolis Star and Tribune, one morning. And it had a picture of this man walking with a big cart he was pulling behind him. And it said David Kunst walking down Highway 6 in Colorado on his way home to Minnesota to become the first man to walk around the world. And I'm like, well, I didn't know you could do that if you were from Minnesota. So I thought, well, that's how I want to go see the world. I don't have any money, so I'll probably just have to walk. I swear to you, this was a thought in my head. I don't have any money, so if I want to go see the world, I guess I have to walk. That was the thought in my head. So,
and that was at age 12.
That was at the age of 12, and I just was really curious about how the world ticks, because that was the age that I started to realize that there's this whole big world going on around me that is not just playing kickball and stickball and climbing trees and having a good time with your buddies. It through the newspaper, I started to realize that 12-year-olds are living a very different lifestyle in other parts of the world. And of course, it's 1974 is when I was 12 years old. So if you quickly do the math, you'll know I'm 56. But yeah, I started reading the paper, and it really got me curious about the world. And I really wanted to go see the world someday. So when I saw this picture of a man walking around the world, I thought, well, that's how I'll go see the world someday.
Oh, there
So
you go.
that's really how that all connected.
So you had the seed back when you were 12 years old, and
Yeah.
then I think fast forward, I think when you were 37 is when you started the journey. Is that right?
Yeah, so I started planning it earlier than that, probably at the age of 34 and 35.
Okay.
I started getting really serious about it because that dream would kind of pop up into the forefront of my head over the years. And it was so outside the box. I thought,
Well,
gosh,
especially back then, you guys didn't have the internet.
exactly. So how are you going to really make that happen? And I'm not going to say it out loud unless I really mean it. So I never mentioned it to my mom or my friends, but it would kind of pop into my head over the course of the years, like, geez, I really want to go walk around the world. Right. Well, all right. How
Yeah, you don't
realistic
want to
is
tell too
that?
many people that. Like,
And I thought, right. And I thought, as I was pulling into my 30s, I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, then I better get a move on because I ain't going to get any younger. And I knew that I had to be experienced enough in my life to handle what the world was going to throw at me, but young enough to physically handle the journey. And apparently that age is 37.
yeah, now it's a well-known fact that 37 is that date. So
Thank God I didn't go in my 20s. I'm a late bloomer, so I would not have been able to handle it.
it wouldn't have worked. So tell me kind of what were you doing like lifestyle-wise at that age when you were starting to think about it? And then if I remember one of the videos that you had spent 2 years and you had free accommodations because it was going to be a self-funded trip.
Absolutely, yeah.
As you worked, so kind of what were you doing when you first said, okay, it's time. I really need to put a date on this. And then what was your life circumstance? Were you in Colorado at that time?
I was, but if I could back up just a little bit, my
Please.
lifestyle had been, when Steve Jobs gave that great commencement speech about looking back on your life and looking at the dots that are connected that bring you to where you are. And that's where my dots had led me. I had lived and traveled and lived overseas, and I know that that was preparing me for this ultimately. So I pulled into Vail, Colorado and started working, the various jobs. But my job at the time, when I really got serious about it, I was working in the hotel business in sales and marketing. And I just it started getting bigger and bigger in my head going, gosh, if I want to do this, I better get a move on.
Was it
And,
nagging at you?
and it was nagging at me. And, I just thought, will I be satisfied at the end of my life if, in fact, I don't do this? And the answer was no.
So
And I
maybe
had to figure out how to do it. And that was when the internet was just starting to take off. And these things called websites were,
right.
this mysterious thing, right? And if you remember this, it didn't happen too long. But when emails were just coming out, you had an email assigned to that computer. You couldn't log on to your email wherever you were. So I would race home and log on to my email, and there weren't that many websites. So I couldn't really do much homework. There wasn't much homework to be done online. So I still had to buy all the maps and spread them across the floor and do my homework that way and go buy these things called guidebooks, if you remember those.
Was that kind of like the day of Barnes and Noble and Borders where you literally had to go to the bookstore to get the book?
Exactly. You had to go and lay maps all over the place. And the maps, I really sat in my living room. And do you remember when the maps would have, like, from this point to this point is X amount of miles or kilometers, right? And it had a dot to dot, right? And then the next dot would have, from this dot to this dot is 250 miles. It's like, oh, that's not helping me much. But anyway, so I'm counting dot to dots all the way through my living room, trying to figure out a plan for a walk around the world.
So when you initially started, it was meant to be around the world. It wasn't meant to be across the U.S.
No, I always knew if I was going to go for it, I got to go for it. Because I did start thinking around the world, boy, that's a little much. So maybe I could just do America and, well, New Zealand, because I'd lived in New Zealand. Well, I want to go walk through New Zealand. And, I got to do Australia. And then I got to do England. And it's like, well, you got to just do the whole thing and figure out the tough parts. that was my thought process.
Gotcha.
And I thought, I got to go for it. So I was working in sales and marketing at the hotel. I had a little condo in Vail. So I had the mortgage and the IRA and the 401k and the good job and friends and this kind of thing. And I remember I was getting a promotion at work. And he said, the general manager offered me this job, and I said, well, okay, I'd like it, but on August 1st, 1999, I am going to leave on a walk around the world. And he's like, okay, well, that's fine. Like, I'm,
And that was when was that you got that?
That was like 2 years prior.
So you had set a hard, fast date?
I set a hard date, August 1st, 1999.
Hell or high water, I'm going.
And it wasn't just a shot in the dark, like throw a dart and hit a date. It really wasn't that, but I was trying to measure it by how much time I need versus what will the weather be like in the first few months of my walk. I don't want to walk through the Mojave Desert in July. So, do you know what I mean? It wasn't completely random. And, but I decided August 1st, 1999 would be the date. And he said, sure, that's fine. Of course, not really believing that would happen, but of course it
happened, right?
Yeah.
So you had and you were initially planning on self-funding the entire thing. So was the thought financial as well, like 24 months, sell everything I have, departure date? Did everything kind of you did that so everything would align correctly?
I did. And so when you're talking about planning for a 5-year walk around the world, there's only so much you can actually plan. And then there has got to be this leap of faith as well, because there's a lot of moving parts that you have zero control over.
Sure.
So you have to trust that you can handle whatever it's going to throw at you, and you can collect the resources and find the resources to help you for something you didn't see coming. Because you can't plan. I couldn't plan 9/11 is going to hit. You can't plan these things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just silly to think you can plan everything for 5 years. I'm actually surprised how many people say to me, did you plan all your accommodation throughout? It's like, well, no, because if I had been that organized, then you're stopping these great opportunities that come at you.
Absolutely. Right. Okay.
So I sort of, I look back now and think I really did have this great mix of planning enough and leaving enough room for great opportunities to come at me that I could accept and change the course of the walk, which did happen.
Excellent. And now you say like it's like 2 years, but it lasts a little bit longer than that. Like, what's your head trash that goes on for 2 to 4 years while you're planning this? What's the battle that you have in your head, if there was one? And how did you manage what your thought, like, this is nuts, I can't do this, to this is done, I'm going to work it? How did you manage that?
Yes, that is a darn good question. I'll tell you, one of the regrets that I have is that I did not keep a journal in the months/years prior to leaving.
Okay.
I started a journal like the day I left. Well, what was really going on in my head prior to that's a great question. I honestly don't remember having head trash.
Really?
Now, that's ridiculous. Of course, I must have had some head trash, but I just don't remember it being there.
Well, did you?
I know one. One head trash was, this is the picture in my head of what this is really going to look like. I am going to be walking through desolate area for months at a time and beg farmers I randomly meet to talk to me. This is, I will beg them to talk to me. I will beg them for food, but I won't see people for months at a time. That was the picture in my head. That is not at all what happened, but that was the picture in my head.
Okay. Now, what are a lot of self-help and motivational guys will say you have to go public with your goals and let everyone know that you're going to do it. Like when you told your manager, I'll take a promo, but I'm leaving in 2 years. Prior to that, had you kind of let the cat out of the bag with a lot of people, told your family and your friends, and were they all on board with it, or nobody knew?
That's a great question. No, I was, I made it a very big point to finally say it out loud. And the first time I said it out loud was to someone I kind of knew, weren't a great friend. They're not going to hold me to it.
Yeah, right. Like,
but it,
yeah.
Right.
I want you to know, but I don't really care if you know. But if you like it, that's good. Yeah.
It was someone I knew, but I didn't know real well. Anyway, so I just happened to mention it, and they just kind of went, "Oh, okay, gosh, that's really cool." Like a little condescending, probably, frankly, like what I would do now. Like, really,
for others now.
For you, it's cute,
So
Yeah. But then once I said it out loud the first time, which was months after I really decided I was going to do it, I started saying it out loud to a little more and a little more. And then when I told my mom was driving through Vail, and I said, I have something really big I want to tell you, okay? And I said, I want you to be supportive, even if you're not.
I'll let you to lie to me if you need to.
Right. Okay, I'm sure she's thinking, oh, geez, she's probably got a parole officer or something, But she sat down on the couch and she said, okay, I'm ready. And I told her what I was planning. Well, she was so over the top supportive, which we talked about years later. And she said, well, I thought, well, that'll never happen, so I may as well go ahead and be supportive. So, yeah, so that's a really good question, because I really did start saying it out loud. And I'm one of these people that I won't say something out loud until I'm serious about it.
But now when you do the cat's out of the bag, you've got to do it, because
out of the bag. I got to do it.
Personal pressure that you put on yourself is too much to give up.
I was pretty clear on it then. At that point, I was clear on it. And I will tell you that I understand, even if someone were to come to me today and said, I'm planning a walk around the world, I would probably honestly respond just like people responded to me. Supportive, but in a little condescending way. Because people say things all the time, they never follow through. Heck, people don't even follow through with a phone call. How are you going to follow through with a
I know, right?
I get it, believe me. But I was always clear that I could do this. I knew what it looked like. I did not know all the surprises that might come in my path, but I knew that I could do this.
Where does that come from, Polly? Because quite honestly, it's not super common that someone could come up with an idea and go, it's done deal, I got this. Like, where did that come from?
I wonder that. I don't know. I'll ask the big guy when I get upstairs.
Is it are you reading books all the time, or do you attend?
I think,
do you associate with people who encourage that, or?
Here's what I know. There's a lot I don't know, but here's what I know. Is in high school and school, I was one of those people that was smart and never applied myself. I did average grades, enough to pass, right?
Yep.
The classes that I was forced to do good in, or forced to really apply myself, I did good in, right? And what I did in high school was I was really into the sports thing, right? Mm-hmm. And boy, that I applied myself. And when you're in sports, what do you learn? You learn how to win, how to lose, how to do better, how to dig deep. Like I was a runner, long distance runner, and you got to dig deep.
Right, right.
You're exhausted and you still got half to go. So you have to learn how to dig deep and learn those, now I know as professional development tools, if not personal development tools, how to dig deep and how to stay focused and how not to let go. How to visualize, all these tools that I learned in sports in high school, even though I didn't take all these great classes in high school. That's where I got some of the focus and the tools that I needed to carry on to do this walk around the world. I really think that that's one of those dots, dot to dot to dot, is that whole sports buildup from when I was very young.
Gotcha. Okay. That's interesting.
You learn how to focus and dig deep. And
now tell me how you left with the expectation and plan that it was a 5-year journey.
Yeah.
How did you come up with 5 years? And
honey, I did it's a math equation.
Is it? You just like, that's a math
classes I did well in.
That's the number of miles, 2 point something miles per hour.
Right. But I knew that I had to pace myself. Right.
Okay.
I knew that I could do comfortably 15, 16 miles a day. I knew that I'd have to take some days off every week. I knew I had to plan on being sick once in a while, which never happened, but that was part of the equation. I had the maps laid all over the living room floor going dot to dot is 16 miles, dot to dot is 32 miles, dot to dot. And I just created a plan. It will take me X amount of months to get through New Zealand. I'll probably want to rest after that. It'll take me X amount of months to get through Australia, etc. Do you see what I mean? I gave myself plenty of rest time.
Okay.
But having said that, I mean, I kept going. It was my general pace was walk 3 or 4 days, take a day off, walk 3-4 days, take a day off. And the reason I say 3 to 4 days is if I walk 3 days to be that strict, but then that would leave me in the middle of nowhere, Like,
Yeah.
what's the point? Let me walk a fourth day and be in a major city. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just a general pace that I did. And
Okay.
once I figured out this routine, like I realized that every 3 months I just had to sit somewhere for 5 days, a longer break than just a
Yeah.
day.
Okay.
And I realized after a couple of years that this was going on. I was like, so if my body is telling me I need a break for about 5 days after 3 months of walking, then let's plan for that. So then I started planning accordingly, like, where do I want to hang out for 5 days every 3 months? And so I would choose places like Phuket, Thailand, instead of, some random.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I set up the pace and planned.
Gotcha. So was there ever and we have been full-time RVers in the past for like 3 years in a row. And we sometimes run into people that they get on the road and it didn't meet their expectations and they quickly get off, or some people that get on the road and stay on the road and then they never, was there ever a thought in your mind that I want to do it for 5 years because the math works out, but I might do this indefinitely? Did that ever cross your mind, or you had a finite limit to it?
No, I did not want to do it indefinitely, but I was very, very aware that I might run out of money, so that I may have to stop and work, but I didn't want to. I really tried to make it happen that I wouldn't have to do that, because I was, age 37 to 42 when I was doing this walk. And frankly, women go through a nesting period, and I was well into the nesting period when I left, let alone while I was on it. I didn't want to be out on the road forever. I really wanted to, I don't want to say get it over with as soon as possible. That's not at all what I mean. What am I trying to say? Just that, no, it was a plan.
And that's not necessarily a bad way of looking at it. One of the ways we looked at RVing was that, we see a lot of seniors that are full-time RVers, but you're in your 70s. It's just not so easy to travel down the road with 40 feet or 60 feet worth of stuff, set it up, tear it down. That's really hard the older you get. So we wanted to do that while we were still capable. So I'm assuming that maybe that's part of your thought process. Let's do this while I'm not the first 95-year-old lady that had everything in line that decided to try it. That kind of thinking.
Yeah, well, I will tell you that the years leading up to my walk, I had spent a number of years traveling, again, living overseas.
Okay.
And I knew that it was tough work. I was very, very clear that this was not romantic, the romantic traveling of the road, the empty road. I was
a realistic perception of what
very realistic about that. And
so you're not going to be sipping coffee and eating baguettes at the finest cafe in the world, huh?
No, I will tell you that I was very, I went into this with a clear picture in my head that there were going to be tough times. I didn't go into this thinking everything's going to run smoothly.
Yeah.
I was prepared from the get-go to accept and expect tough times and uncomfortable times. I was ready for it. And so when these times hit, I was like, all right, here we go.
Okay.
So I was very clear on that. And I will tell you, that is one of the biggest lessons that I learned and that I tell other people and that I carry with me today in business. I don't care how great a planner you are, you're going to hit tough times and you're going to hit unexpected times. So don't act like, I just got blindsided. Who knew I'd have to pay taxes, whatever.
Right. Okay. So that's interesting because, and you're a keynote speaker. If anybody's interested in having Polly speak and do a keynote for you, the information is down below. And I know you speak around the country and the world. And is that one of the key things, that expect bad things to happen?
And expect.
Yeah, plan for it.
Challenges and times and things you can't plan for.
Yeah, just know that it's going to happen. You don't have to have the resolve to figure it out when you get there.
Yeah, you have to have, when we talk about our teammates, well, who's your teammate when you're out doing something alone? Believe me, you have teammates, right?
Yeah.
And you got to have different people to be able to turn to for various things. So when I just wanted someone to call and gripe away, I don't want answers. I just let me just barrel onto you.
Let her rip.
I had one friend for that. Yes, we're
Excellent.
still friends. But she knew her role. Okay, I'm not going to call my dad for that or my mom for that. But and who
That's
is my
great.
teammate when I haven't hit a place that has any food for 2 days? I'd hit a dry patch and I couldn't carry much food with me, right?
Right, right.
So who's my teammate when I run out of food? Well, it's going to be this poor fool driving down the road right now.
They just didn't know
Waiting
yet, but you're going to let
down.
them know.
Yeah, by the way, you're my teammate today. You got any food in that car?
That's excellent. So
Which they did.
one of the things that definitely interested me, and I'm sure a lot of people would have a question about, is your initial plan was to self-fund it, which is certainly fantastic. How to self-fund a 5-year journey, but kind of tell us a little bit about a 2,000-mile pub crawl in Australia and how that came about and what that turned into.
Yeah, one of the big game-changing turns on my 5-year journey was one day I was in southern Australia and I met this woman on the side of the road and she saw me wandering about looking for a town park. This was my great plan. I'm going to just camp out in the town park. But, it was before smartphones. Sounds reasonable. I'm going to go find the town park. And I'm just wandering about with my buggy, Bob. I carried everything in a buggy.
Yep.
And she saw me looking lost and came up and said, honey, you look lost. Can I help you find something? And I said, well, yeah, I was looking for the town park if you had one. And she heard my funny accent and said, where are you from? And I told her what I was doing and where I was from, introduced myself. And she said, well, fancy that. She said, let me introduce myself. My name is Margaret, and I'm the president of the local Lions Club. Well, the Lions Clubs have got to get involved with this. So she, said, follow me, come home with me. I said, okay. I pushed my little buggy Bob home to Margaret's house, and she got me all decked out with my own room and the internet access and, hot meal. And she said, well, in the meantime, she's calling all of her Lions Club buddies, because Lions Clubs, if you don't know, are service organizations, civic organizations that are based in every town around the world. Like Rotary Club is one.
Yep.
Kiwanis clubs are, I think, more just American, but like those organizations. So she took me to the pub, and sure enough, the place is packed. Not because of me, but because everyone in a rural Australian town goes to the pub. So the place is packed with all the locals, and she got up on a chair and announced to the cheering crowd that we've just raised, $250 or $320 for the Breast Cancer Network Australia, because she announced who I was, and they started passing a hat around. That's how. So
That is excellent.
Everyone's throwing money in the hat. And then Margaret called the next Lions Club up the road and explained who I was and can you take care of her? And they said, sure, send her up. So I walked 15 miles up the road and they said, let's go to the pub. And they passed a hat around and sent me to the next club. And that started a relationship that snowballed into an international sponsorship of Lions Clubs passing me village to village to village around the world.
That is
Is that
excellent.
beautiful or what?
And of course, you can plan on that when you're in Vail.
Yeah.
No, like where's that on the map? Where does that say, meet the lady here at the park?
Right. And that's exactly what I mean about leaving yourself open enough to be able to see the opportunity and frankly pounce on it. I pounced on this opportunity and I kept it strong.
Excellent.
It wouldn't have happened as seamlessly as it did if I hadn't sort of pounced on it and kept it going strong.
Left yourself open, and then the door opens. You have to literally walk through it. You can't just say, oh, there's an open door and not do anything about it. You have to walk through the door.
And naturally people say, do you think you could have started that from the beginning? It wouldn't have worked. If I had contacted the international president and asked if he could do it the other way around, meaning have it trickle down, right?
Yeah. Cuckoo.
I don't think so, Punky. Good luck on your walk.
Yeah.
But in fact, it happened the other way around. Very grassroots, meaning a woman within a small local town who passes me to the next town, and then it grows and grows up to the International Lions Club president, who in fact did get involved. And
excellent. And since then, you've raised how much for breast cancer awareness and breast cancer research?
It's about $250,000 US. All the money stayed in each country that we worked in.
Okay.
And it was in their, currency.
That is awesome.
I still on occasion go out and do a fundraising event. I do a lot of book clubs because book clubs read my book, and then they go and they give money to the local organization that I am partnered with that kind of stuff. But not every country has a breast cancer organization, so we didn't do fundraising in every country.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so it was about that 250,000 is in 13 breast cancer organizations for in eight different currencies. So
Okay.
even across the U.S., there were
That's
different.
fantastic. Okay. That's really interesting. If you think about it, 5 years, you raised 50 grand a year for 5 years, kind of. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and some of them say in Thailand. We didn't raise that much money by U.S. standards. It was like $2,500 in U.S. standards, but in Thai baht, that was enough to start a breast cancer department at a local hospital.
That's
so,
fantastic.
Yeah, so there's cool things like that. Yeah.
The one of the things that kind of leads me into essentially a pub crawl, which I just think is fantastic. Although I don't think you can initially plan on that. So, like, how do I end up in that situation? It's pretty hard to reverse engineer it. But one of the things that after the fact, obviously, you wrote the book, and if I got it right, it took about 6 years to write the book.
It did.
And 5 years to do the journey, and you never had the intention of writing the book when you left?
No. I promise you. Remember I said I didn't keep a journal in the pre-walk months and years?
Yeah.
I promise you, I remember this thought in my head that, first of all, it's going to be hard to explain why I had to do this or wanted to do this. I'm just following an inner compass that is so forceful that it's just, forcing me out on the road. And I'm going to just follow it. Okay. So no one will care. And if they cared at all, it would just seem like she's crazy. And so the thought in my head all the time was, I probably won't talk about it too much. No one will really care. So I'll just keep it to myself and I'll get done in 5 years and just go get a job at a hotel. This was the thought in my head.
Yeah.
Of course, now I know what happened and what has, happened since then. And I'm like, wow, well, that thought was wrong.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly glad that you did write the book. So tell me, the journey was 5, the book was 6. Which one was harder?
Oh, writing the book was painful.
Is it really?
Because I will tell you that walking all the time, when I was walking, even when it was annoying and aggravating and uncomfortable, blah, 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 it was still a joy because I was living my dream. It's very much like, say, raising kids. Now I haven't raised kids, so I'm just assuming. But it's something you love. It's hard every single stinking day, and you wouldn't give it up for anything. Is that fair? Do you have kids?
No, we don't.
Okay. You know what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was the same with my walk. Even in the painful, annoying, aggravating times, it was still what I wanted to be doing, and I was still learning, and it was still fabulous,
And it was a new adventure every day, every 16 miles, every other couple miles, and not so much in publishing.
Right. It was just painful. It was just painful.
So you got the book done, and kind of walk me through that process a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, well, first of all, if I could humor you for a minute.
Please.
So I'd never written a book before. Now, when I left, I had never really done much writing, but because I was free to just be myself and write about, just to communicate with my friends and family, I was free to be myself. So I would write and just be myself. And it really started taking off. Now my dad's a writer, mom's a writer. It's swimming around the gene pool. So I really started having some fun with that. And I started entering writing contests and winning them. Like, who knew, right? So this was a skill that was developed on the walk and only could have been developed on the walk, right? I won a writing contest in Australia. And then during the 5 years where I'm writing every day and the skill is being honed and this kind of thing, the word blog didn't exist yet. So I was writing journals. Okay. And I was back in the United States, but I was still walking. And I got a call from Forbes online magazine to say, congratulations, you're the #2 blog of the year. And I went, wow, fantastic. I was like, what's a blog? So anyway, the writing part was really a skill that was developed over my walk, and I'm very grateful for that. But what was the question? I know.
You turned it into the book.
Right. So I didn't know how to write a book, but I knew how to tell a story. So anyway, I wrote, this is now I know is kind of a writing technique, is to just barf it all out.
Yeah.
Just barf out the whole story. And I'm done. And it's 1,300 pages long. So it's like, well, you can't, nobody wants to read a 1,300 book. So I go in there and I rewrite it, and now it's cut in half, and then a half again. And anyway, it gets down to be 416 pages, and I'm like, I'm done. There's not a comma coming out of here.
Gotta be out. This thing's gotta give birth. Gotta go.
Right. So that's how I wrote it. And then I go marching over and I hand it to this publisher who's a small independent publisher. And little did I know that she's just a crook. Okay. And it was just the most horrible situation, because if we could recap, spending a lifetime thinking about it, 3 years to plan it, 5 years to walk, 6 years to write, and I hand my baby over to a crook. So I don't know anything. Long story short, I go marching over to an attorney when I realized I was in a lot of trouble. And the attorney says, you got to mitigate your losses. You need to figure out how to do this yourself. And I said, you know what? You're right. I am not going to get ripped off again. And as it turns out, a lot of authors, this happens to, right? You don't know what you're getting into.
Yep.
You just want to get your content into the world. So long story short, I did a deep dive into the self-publishing world, and a passion was unleashed, the likes of which I hadn't had since the walk.
I was going to say,
Right?
does it turn into the same burn that you had?
Oh yeah. To this day, I'm just
really, that is awesome.
Oh, I get all excited. Pity the fool who asked me about publishing. I just get all
Game
excited.
over.
Yeah. They're just like, all right, already. I just asked, how's the book? But I get a little excited. And anyway, yes, what happens when your passion's unleashed is you want to know more, and you want to dig deeper and be better. And you want to be one of the people, the experts on those panels that start shaping the industry, right? So that's me. And it was just unleashed. So I figured out, through a lot of mistakes, frankly. I'm just a big heap of mistake going on right here. And I republished it under my own publishing company, right?
Yep.
That's the only way you can keep 100% of your rights and your royalties, and I decided to do that. And then, after learning more lessons, my friends started sending their friends to me saying, Polly's figured out how to do it, so go talk to her. And I started to create charts and graphs and flow charts and etc. So about 2 years after that, I said, I'm going to open My Word Publishing, which is going to drive authors through the whole system without getting ripped off. And they maintain everything. So I opened My Word Publishing 5 plus years ago.
And that's the name of the website as well, right?
mywordpublishing.com.
Got it.
And now we've published 240-ish books.
Some bestsellers in there too?
We got national award winners, etc. And I'm just thrilled every day that we can help authors get their message into the world without getting ripped off.
That is awesome.
Like what happened to me. So
I think it's great that where was the seed for the walk that happened at age 12, and then this second burn that you currently have, or additional burn that you have, is for something that just sort of happened along the way. You didn't know it. It didn't.
Right.
It just starts to happen, and then you find it by doing something. You find a burn for it. Is there do you lay awake sometimes at night, or get up at night and go, I also want to do this? Or you think this is maybe the third burn is somewhere in there, or this is the final one? Or do you have
the third burn could have something to do with business, but I think I'm done going out to be the adventurer. In fact, funnily enough, is funnily a word? Funnily enough, when I was done with my walk, people would say, do you have another adventure in you? And I'm like, well, not now, but ask me in 10 years. Now it's been 14 years, and I'm like, no. I don't need to go anywhere.
You're the one that you drive to the gym. You don't walk to the gym anymore, is that it?
I still do walk every day. I'll give you that. I still walk every day, but I just love being part of a community and having friends around and really digging into.
Well, since you were gone for so long, that's that nesting thing coming back, huh?
I'm telling you, girls nest.
That's a good thing.
I'm all nested.
What is your one greatest pleasure from doing publishing right now? What's the biggest, that's the bee's knees? What makes you the happiest with what you're doing?
I love, 95% easily. 95% of our authors have never written a book before. And a lot of them have a big story to tell, but they have no idea how to even get started. So I love that I can be a part of this, just saying, don't get overwhelmed. This
Yeah.
is how we do it. And just carry them through, frankly, one step at a time that I dealt with. But otherwise, these great stories wouldn't be out into the world, because here's the thing.
Yeah.
This is the greatest time in world history to be a writer, because there's no longer this gatekeeper that says your content isn't good enough. How great is that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty
So
awesome.
now we can get our content, get our stories into the world with no one saying it's not good enough. And of
Yeah.
course, the bad news is that anyone can get their content into the
Exactly.
world.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Good and bad with that, right? Yeah.
right. But it's a thrill to be a part of this. As horrible as that publishing situation was, it could not have happened at a better time. Meaning, that happened to me right at the onset of the explosion of the self-publishing world. And so I
Okay.
kind of want to go back to that publisher and go, oh, thank you so much for ripping me off.
Thanks for
Because,
blowing me up with that one at that
yeah, so
time.
I got to learn as it was growing. And, you have that
Excellent.
depth of knowledge.
Now, when you work with authors right now? You're in Denver. Do you have a platform? You don't have to be local. It doesn't have to be someone in Colorado. You can work with anybody around the world.
Anyone within the country.
Okay.
Around the world, I'd still have some writing advice maybe, but the publishing rules are different from country to country, which is,
Okay.
well, stand by. Next
Yeah.
year could change. But yeah, I would say 40% of our clients are not in Colorado.
Okay.
So it's quite a bit. And
Excellent. And you have a platform of sorts, or a community of sorts. If somebody were listening to this and they said, I've been trying to scratch that itch about a book, what's the on-ramp for you? Where should people go? Where do you take them?
well, first of all, they would start with me so I could get their goals, in mind and sort out the best path for them.
Okay.
It's never the best. It's never the same path twice. We don't do packages. Okay.
Yep.
We don't do packages. So, for example, a book about the history of your family is going to be a very different path, different editors, cover designers, layout designers, etc., than someone who has a science fiction fantasy.
Yeah.
All right, you got that's a very different beast. But we would find them a writing coach. And what a writing coach would do is help flush out the outline. And just like the map that I laid across the floor going dot to dot to dot, and I could figure out my path in advance, that's what a writing coach can help you create an outline. And then you know where you're going. And that's what I didn't do. And that's why it took me 6 stinking years to write my book, even though I had the story laid out. So
What would you say? What would you say anymore? The average time to get a book from here to I can hand a book to somebody. If you could take an author, kind of give me a
good book.
Yeah.
Okay, because let me tell you,
Yeah.
right now, if there's a
right?
spectrum of self-publishing from I wrote it and put it up on Amazon tonight up until,
Yeah.
I got a writing coach to help me develop the process and the arcing storyline and the characters and the plot, up until New York Times bestseller. That's a huge spectrum.
Yep.
Okay. So what we do this end of the spectrum, we try to put out the best books we can. All right. So with that said, I will say anywhere from, let's say 6 months to 2 years.
Okay. So not too bad at all.
Well, the difference is 6 months would be a business book, right? There's no plot development, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
right. So, and it's shorter, you want say 30, 35,000 words for a business book today. Shorter is trendier. Do you see me go off on when you ask me a question about publishing? I can't stop. So, so anyway, business book, you could write pretty fast because there's no plot development, character development, stuff like that. But the 2 years would be, a historic fiction fantasy. And you have to go through a number of rounds of development, editing, and this kind of thing, and etc. So anyway,
Gotcha. Okay.
Somewhere in there. But yeah, I could say easily, a lot of people come to us with a manuscript already written.
Yep.
So from that point to in hand would probably be 6 to 8 months.
Gotcha. Okay.
If it's already written. Yeah.
Your story is just, I mean, we sit and dig into some more of the traveling stories, and publishing stuff is fascinating, I think. So I could go on indefinitely. But if you were to, if you were watching this, or you knew somebody was watching this and they maybe had a thought or a concept, what's the, like a parting word that you would tell somebody if they're thinking about, they've got a passion in the back of their head or a challenge they want to overcome? What's like the Polly words of wisdom that we can leave people with?
It's not easy, but you've got to surround yourself with only people that will be supportive of it. And the reason I say that's not easy is because some of the people closest to us are not being supportive, because remember, they're bringing their own comfort zone in with what they're telling you. They can't do it. So they're saying, and they don't do that by design. It just is what it is. That's human nature.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's very difficult, because if it's your sister is your best friend, and your sister is the one that is saying you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, it's hard to remove that person from your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So only surround yourself with people that are supportive. In fact, that's what I told my mom. I need you to be supportive.
Otherwise, you're not going to be in this group.
Right. And I was very good at that, is only surrounding myself with people that were very supportive. And luckily for me, my friends and family were.
That's
so
huge. That's
yay
huge.
for me. But I am a big supporter and advocate of visualization. And I did the visualization without knowing that was a real professional development tool. But as I was walking, let's say India, I had a very toughest time in my life walking across India. Do not recommend it, but there you go. It was a piece of work. But that's where I really developed certain tools, especially visualization. I envisioned myself like what the day was going to bring at me, so I knew how to react to it. And so you're not being blindsided. I would visualize walking the last steps into the Arabian Sea. I would visualize myself getting on that plane, and because I had to fly, the wars had broken out, so I had to reroute. I couldn't go through Pakistan, making a long story short. So I had to fly over Pakistan, and I was visualizing getting on that plane. So visualization is very important. So I recommend, when people have a big dream, you sit down and you write. You write down, and it's a writing tool that we have called stream of consciousness writing. Like, you have a pen to paper, not typing, pen to paper, and you just write as if you have already made that goal. And how does it feel? What does it look like? And be very specific about what that looks like. And that's visualization. And frankly, do it once a month and look at it. There's my dream. What does that feel like? Visualization was my biggest tool. So let me pass that on.
That is excellent. That's fantastic. I can't even, sometimes our biggest challenge is like, we have to go to the store and get dinner. It's not like, how am I going to cross the whole country of India and walk into the Arabian Sea? Our visualization necessarily isn't that long or complicated.
Right. But it's one you can take with you in business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your personal life, of course. And we all go through these challenges. Not one single life ever has had a smooth sailing time. Not ever.
Yeah. So get used to it, right?
Yeah. Know how to handle those challenges is what I have.
Polly, that is fantastic. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you in regards to buying your book, which would be on Amazon, the link will be down below. If they want you as a keynote speaker, I'll put your links down below. If you're interested in writing a book and you want to get a consultation with Polly about that, and we don't do it, there's no affiliate agreement or anything like that. I just called her up and said, hey, so this isn't lining our pockets in any particular way. There's a link down below for that as well. Are there any other links that you should that I should put in there? Or that pretty much covers it?
I think that ought to do it. If I could say one thing that's been a lot of fun is if people have book clubs, I would love to just join your book club via Skype, or if you're in the Denver metro area, certainly I come. You have to feed me. You have to
Smart.
feed me. And if I drink too much wine, there might be an Uber home. But
Yeah, you're on your own there, right? You created
but
it.
it's been so much fun to go to book clubs, whether by Skype or anything else. And it's been such a joy to meet people at the book club. So I'd recommend
That's a good ask. So maybe
yeah.
if you have a book club that you're in or you are aware of, could you do Polly a solid on this one and make that connection for the two? That would be great because you spent a lot of time with us today for no perceived gain other than being able to spread your message, which we certainly appreciate. So find a book club near you and create that link for Polly. That would be a payment in kind for such great time. So Polly, I appreciate Savvy Pants Shop with LuLaRoe. We certainly appreciate your time, and we will certainly stay in touch.
And I love your clothes. And you know why? They don't have the zippers and the buttons and stuff like that, right?
How about that? Some do, but
I
most
needed
don't.
those clothes. Where were you 20
I
years
know,
ago?
right?
Years ago.
Well, if you ever want to walk to the gym, again, we'll sponsor you with some clothes to go to the gym.
Okay. Next time I walk around the world, right?
The next one. Never going to happen. Polly, thank you so much for your time. We couldn't be more appreciative.
Thanks so much.
Thank you much, and we'll certainly be in touch on down the road. Maybe we'll walk through Denver and we'll find you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.